everybody. My name is Itha O'Neill. I work as a senior curator at Amos Rex. In this episode, No Ending, Only Process, I will be talking to Japanese artist Tadashi Kawamata about his latest sculptural installation, The Nest, on view in Amos Rex's courtyard until September 2022. Internationally acclaimed Japanese artist Tadashi Kawamata has created a body of work centered on site specificity, found materials, and physical action. Kawamata's work has been shown in solo and group exhibitions and presented in a slew of site-specific projects throughout the world. Viewers have seen his art installations attached to existing structures, drawing energy from them like parasites, often using materials and makers local to the site. After graduating from Tokyo University of Fine Arts in the late 1970s, Kawamata began to move his artistic practice away from painting towards in-situ installations that disturbed the architectural space. In 1982, he was selected to represent Japan in the 40th Venice Biennale. At only 28 years old, he presented a remarkably mature work, an installation of assembled timber that blurred the boundaries between the inside and outside of the Japanese pavilion. Despite early acclaim, Tadashi Kawamata sought to operate outside the gallery setting and found inspiration in the margins of society. In 1984, Kawamata became the first Asian resident at MoMA's PS1 Artist in Residence program in New York. In New York, Kawamata struck an interest in the city's emerging street art scene and took to its streets to build ad hoc structures reminiscent of the temporary dwellings of the homeless in a series of installations called Fieldwork. In another New York-based project, the artist encased and built passages in and around an abandoned 19th century smallpox hospital on Roosevelt Island off the coast of Manhattan. For the Helsinki Biennial in the summer of 2021, Kawamata constructed a majestic lighthouse of locally sourced scrap materials towering over the former military island of Vallisaari. By examining the site closely, Kawamata draws energy from it, lets it guide his artistic work, and weaves connections between its interior and exterior, its past and future. These site-specific projects are part of an extended artistic process that follows a cycle of constructing, deconstructing. In his work, there really is no ending, only process. Hello, Tadashi. Welcome to the podcast. How are you and where are you?
Yes, I'm okay, and I'm still not corona in the moment, and I live in Paris in the moment. Yeah, since 14 years now, I live in Paris.
Okay, and you're in your studio in Paris at the moment. I can see through a video phone call some sketches in the background and maquettes. You're best known for your temporary site-specific installations and your work with reclaimed materials, often wood. But when did you find your voice as an installation artist? Because you did start out as a painter. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us about that journey?
Yeah, it was a long time ago anyway. When I was a student of the art school in Tokyo, I was in oil painting course. In fact, I had a very bad, medical, problems for oil in my skin. So the time to time, I just get out from the painting oil. I can use like acrylic or like watercolor that time. But I have no image to painting in a moment. Standing on the front of the white canvas, without painting anything. It was drawing, but not painting anymore. One day, I just standing on the canvas, and I set up to the 10 of the standing canvas, and without painting, in the atelier of the art school. I didn't think about this is the installation work, but just made a different way of presentation at that time. So this is the first impression for me to the like more space, canvas.
So more space-oriented.
Yeah,
you started using the frame instead of actually painting on canvas.
Yeah, exactly.
And in my introduction to you and your work, I mentioned your participation in the 40th Venice Biennale. You've described it as a kind of paradigm shift in your artistic practice. Can you tell us a bit about that shift? How was it to be invited that young to the Biennale?
Yeah, it was 1982. I was still a student, doctor course, 28 years old. I was very much active, the work that time in Japan. That's why the critic, they invite me to the Venice Biennale. And for me, this is the first huge international exhibition I was participate. So I was really, ambitious, so much. I stayed 2 months in the Venice and working like a udon construction anyway, inside and outside of Japanese pavilion. But, the 1982, that Venice was not like an installation or anything. It's more like a painting and figurative sculpture, like, Barry Flanagan, they had rabbit, the sculpture, or like a schnabel, bud painting, all kind of like a movement, So I was totally disappointed, and I really thought about, this is not a good time for my work, So, after the Venice, I was stayed 6 months in Europe. I was just traveling, and I was really thinking about what can I do. I cannot be in the art world, that time. I should not really like a mainstream of the art because my work is not really in the moment that time, So I'm really feel out, okay, I'm going to be out of the, museum, gallery, kind of like a art-oriented, the institution. I really want to do, to build up by myself, my situation. So then, when I'm back to Japan, I start to the apartment project. This is totally private, project. I just made it. So this is like almost like a starting point for me. The project, like an installation outside, totally local, place and very private project like that.
So this kind of disappointment coming from Venice, where that was so painting oriented, then you started kind of shaping your own place in the art world, outside the art world. And you moved to New York City on a grant. And that also led you forward in your artistic practice. Tell me about that.
Just, after the opening of the Venice Biennale, briefly I met Alana Heiss. She's the directress of the PS1 in New York. So I knew that the PS1, such a interesting alternative space, and also the very good the project they did it, And at that time, the middle of the 80s in New York, is so much graffiti and so much, East Village, the happening, and also the still quite abandoned, building a lot, and the drug and the mafia everywhere, It was very scary and very dangerous. But I was really excited, and especially for this graffiti movement, not like, graffiti on the subway or anything. I really like it to the illegal on the street, the action. And I met a couple of the artists, and they are really out of the gallery, totally out of the museum, out of the art institution. They really want to do the public space. So I was really fascinating about this illegal thing. And this is really connected my work, that time. Yeah, I saw many, like a Keith Haring, or like even the Basquiat was there, and a lot of the, famous artists still, alive and working there. So for me, it's the 1980s of New York. I stayed almost like 3 years there. I was really get inspiring from the, like homeless people and the homeless shelter, because I really was interesting for the favela in Brazil, because when I was participating after the Venice, I was in the São Paulo Biennale, and I visiting the favela in there. Favela is also the totally illegal, and they just built up by themselves, and they steal the electricity and water, everything. This is really like kind of like my way. I thought I'm like a favela builder, or kind of like a homeless shelter builder, something like that.
I think it's interesting how you, with a very simple method, you're very on point by building these structures that attach to existing structures. You kind of just contrast and make us think about what is valuable, what should be, what should not be. It's a very simple method, but it's highly kind of effective. Was it here in New York that you kind of discovered that?
Yeah, the 1984, 5, 6, I was already starting my project in Japan, before that. So it was kind of like a link, for the illegal thing on the street or public space. Also the very spontaneously built up, from the scrap material, just like a trash anyway. So this is a very similar, idea for my work. I would always go out and walking through, and I collecting, and then I build up, just like that. It's like the sketches, field sketches, yeah.
A quick sketches, like intervention into the urban space.
So it's not like New York was a starting point. I already starting after the Venice, 1983, I started the apartment project. That time, it was my starting point. Then I decided to go on. When I was in New York, I saw the, many graffiti thing and some illegal public action. I was really connected like that, yeah.
Yeah. We can return to kind of this use of reclaimed materials, but I was thinking let's talk about the Nest, Amos Rex's outdoor exhibition for the summer of 2022. 2 years ago, Amos Rex invited you to create a public artwork. Tell us about that process and why build a nest?
Yeah, it's, the shape looks like a nest, but it's not really like a nest at all anyway. This is just like attaching to the scrap material on this, mast of the Amos Rex.
The chimney, yeah.
Yeah. Because this, object is very much symbolically, the Amos Rex, the building. Also this very strange, area, space.
The landscape of the square.
The architecture, this also the very characteristic. And so the thing is, I always beating the site, then I can make some, idea. So this mast and this, kind of like a landscape, park, this is very much characteristic. And also something I can attaching to there, So this is like a tree hut, because it's the same thing. I just collecting the material and attaching to the tree or, on the street. It's becoming like a nest, but, the first idea just attaching to the scrap material, on this mast, And maybe the wood will be more easy to collecting from the, finish or somewhere, because your country is more like a wood country at all. I thought.
We're pretty wood-based, yeah, that's true. And also the square itself is like a nest. I mean, did you think of it? It kind of is like this. You walk into the Lassi Palazzi Square and you feel like you're separated from the busy streets that surround it. And it's like this, it's like this shelter. Did you have those kinds of thoughts?
I mean, like, just, like a bird make a nest on the urban space, attaching to the chimney, attaching to the, under the, the roof. It's very symbolically for me, it's a very rigid urban space. So this is a big contrast. Also the kind of like a suggestion, for against nature, against, artificial thing, or against a human being, or many things. So nest is like a very symbolically for me, it's more like a organic, the shape and also the very biological, also the kind of like a parasitic, the way of doing.
We'll return to the parasite thinking. I was just thinking about this nest building because, first of all, nests are, the most primary of shelters. But nest building is a form of kind of improvised construction. So my question for you was, what role does improvisation play in your work? And how did improvisation become a key aspect of your work?
In fact, I'm not really like a improvisation artist anyway. I preparing a lot. I just always make a model, maquette, sketch, everything. But the site, I got the scrap material. The scrap material, you cannot imagine for the size and everything. So it's always depend on the how much amount of the material you can get it. You have to think about how to arrangement. Because if I'm planning to the 2 meter long, the planks or plate, but only 50 centimeter planks, I can get it. How can I do? It's always like a spontaneous, I have to be decide, This is called like an improvisation, but it's not really improvisation. It's more depend on the material, what kind of the material I can get it, and by accident,
So it's like controlled improvisation. And also by using reclaimed materials, the randomness is embedded in your process. Mm-hmm. Just by that choice. I wanted to ask about the use of reclaimed materials. How come you use reclaimed materials, and the use of these materials, does that have more to do with commenting about architectural space, economic aspects, or are there any kind of environmental issues, or are they perhaps linked and intertwined?
Everything, connected together, even the economic, of course, this is a recycling material. Mostly the wood, because I have no technique for the metal or stone or anything, because I come from the painting, the student. So the hammering and the screwing is more easy for me, and just collecting the material, for example, like a furniture, all kind of thing. They had a kind of like a, taste of the human being. It's not like a new, totally fresh wood, not like that. They had already the history of the people, So each time when I go there to the site and collecting the material, I collecting the history of the people in this habitat in the city, because I don't know anything about the site. I don't know anybody. So I have to get to know what kind of the city and what kind of people living there. Everything I can read from this scrap material, for sure,
So the material kind of often reveals its former functions. You don't seem to kind of want to hide their function. You kind of just bring it forward. So you can see chairs, you can see apple crates, like you can see the shape, what they were used for. And also I like the fact that you talk about this kind of human presence is kind of like imbued in the material. So you get all sorts of kind of meanings into that process. The works that attach to existing structures, you've described them as parasites. And the word parasite, in kind of my mind, would suggest something dangerous, malicious, and like a cancer on a host body. But I don't really see that maliciousness. The parasite in your world, it seems like, is the hero. It's the nimble, crafty hero. Does the nest fall into this category of parasite? For me, it seems like a much more kind of comforting metaphor.
For me, it's art. It's like an action. It's a rediscover the something, something else. I used to using very much for the cancer, metaphor, because cancer is just to grow up to another shell, from the ordinary shell, just like suddenly just changing, then to grow up to the different. Body, but the inside of the body, So it's really like a, parasite. But parasite is, of course, they have the two type of the parasite. They have a very good parasite, very bad parasite, because very bad parasite try to get out from the own body, But the good parasite mean like they try to stay together to living together, grow up together, So for me, it's a very good metaphor for the, if in this kind of the world, we are so much, different cultural background people to living together, all different thinking, different knowledge, different history anyway. But we have to be stay together anyway. Everybody, we are parasite because we need the animal, we need the people, we need food, we need everything. We are already parasite. Even the bacteria, eating another bacteria. We are eating the bacteria. Everything.
We're all connected.
Yeah, sure.
We're all connected for sure. And that kind of idea that we're all connected, and I think there's a kind of generous side to your artistic practice. You collaborate often, and you often collaborate with local organizations and residents. And for the Nest, you've teamed up with our local reuse center, Kierrätyskeskus, who collected disused furniture for the installation. And I feel like you're constantly open in your artistic practice to the public, to craftsmen, and there's a communal feel in your process. You're not really an artist in a kind of an ivory tower. What do you feel is the value of collaboration?
I don't know anything about the site and the people and the country, everything. I'm just like a visitor, outsider. So how to get to know the city, how to get to know the people? It's a very easy way. We just inviting the original inhabitants to work together. So I'm always listening to what they are talking about and what they're thinking about. And I was really enjoy to listening and talking, exchange the idea. And then finally we can work together, So it's like a collaboration, but I really like to get to know more to the site, more to the, to the place, more to the people, So my work is more like researching for the country, researching for the history of the ground, everything. So I'm always learn a lot from those kind of people, not from the art world.
You've described your work as having no ending, only process. What do you mean by that?
You see, I'm always process working, I go there to the site and I work with somebody and then every day just hammering, fixing, then to the opening day. Then next day I go to other place. I start again to the same thing, to the collecting material, people talking, and then to working. So it seems like I already did when I was 25 to now, so almost 40 years. Just only one project, I was still continuing. But I'm still continuing, the build up and taking down, and build up, taking down. This is like a kind of like a circulation of the material. It's a different country, different city, different people, but I'm still doing same thing. And, constructing different shape or different material, but then taking down, then to another place to go there to the, So it's like if you hit something in your head, you get the worm, you get the kind of like
a bump.
Bomb, yeah. Then after this bomb, it's the same your body anyway. Then after that, they're going to be back again. So it's like, nothing less, nothing loose. You're just collecting and then to throw away, collecting again and then throw away. And then I just build up and then take it down. So it's like a circulation, time. It's like a time, being. And this is totally processing, never finishing, never complete, So I think it's this is more like a kind of like a Buddhistic image, idea for the reincarnation. You can born and you can die, but you can reborn some kind of way, and then so it's like a continuing.
And the reincarnation itself, that's the kind of permanent thing.
Yeah.
I was thinking that your work in many ways is more kind of impermanent than most works of art. And that's your choice. You're kind of going against the grain. Many artists seek permanence, and you don't necessarily do that. So how important is it for you to leave a mark? And are you perfectly content with some of your work just disappearing?
So it may be my work, my installation will be stay even the 100 years, but still I said that this is temporary, because the material will be changing naturally, Everybody hate about public space to using for the wood because wood is not really strong enough, or it's always changing. Some moisture is coming and cracking everything. People have to take care, So their maintenance always, For example, one of my installation work in Swiss. Every 5 years, all the neighborhood was coming, and then to the voting, you're going to be taking down this installation, or we can keep it. And then if we can keep it, we're going to be changing the new wood, So it was already 20 years. So it's the fourth time they are maintenance, I think this is a very interesting way to think about the permanent, the way. It's not really permanent as like a forever, but as much as people care about my work. So this is the best way for me, best way for the artist so producing the artworks anyway. Temporary, it's temporary. My life is temporary. Your life is temporary. Everybody has to die.
I was just going to say, temporary, it really is a matter of perspective. Everything is temporary.
Yeah, sure.
And nothing is really permanent.
So this is very much, fantasy for the human being.
Yeah.
So the reality is just temporary. Everybody have to die.
And death is really the only permanent thing.
Oh, yeah, but...
Yeah. So maybe permanence isn't such a great thing to aspire to. I was just going to ask, before we end this podcast, do you have any words for our visitors?
I don't want to give to the answer. I don't want to give to the, you should look at like this, like this, like this. Just sometime, the ordinary life, they need something different, way of doing, So I'm very strange guy and very outsider, and I don't really care about anything. But once you get this kind of thing, you have to be really answer by themselves anyway. They really think about. I think that's all.
You once said to us in one of our meetings, you said, we were asking you about how you work and what you think of things. And I just love the way you said it. You was like, I like ordinary, but a little bit different. And does that do you feel that represents you?
Mm-hmm. This is exactly what I'm living there and working there like that.
Okay, wonderful that we get it just right at the end of the podcast. Tadashi, thank you so much for this wonderful talk. Listeners have certainly gained an insight into your unique artistic practice. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
This podcast is brought to you by Amos Rex, an art museum in Helsinki, Finland. Tadashi Kawamata's The Nest is on view from April until September 2022. Hope to see you at the museum.